thing, so I'm getting another one probably on my shoulder.
You don't get it yet?
Rachel, I'll show you exactly what I'm gonna get. Rachel did it for me when
so
we
you're
were.
putting them in different spots.
Yeah, so
part of me is like, I would maybe build.
No,
if I got one, I would build.
I used to think that too, but Emma told me that they're very particular about that, artists, because unless you go to the same tattooist all the time.
Yeah.
Because
which is what I would do.
It's their art, so you can't alter somebody else's. So like if I wanted to build on this one with Parker, I would have to go see this artist, or I'd have to show her what I was going to do and check it with her and make sure she was okay with it, out of respect. I mean, you don't, and the other tattoo artist, out of respect, would say, I want to know she's okay with it.
Test.
So, but I want it always in the similar place, so he wants it on his back. So
that's where they did it.
And so kind of either...
Yeah, that's smart.
Like this build, he would look so good with one
right in the middle, and that's what he's thinking. And so I would do mine right here on. And so Emma's, this is the exact same bird that's inside of her arm tattoo.
Yeah.
Back here, it's right there.
Yeah.
But the one that I'm doing with Parker is one that Rach did with me with henna on my shoulder, and I loved it. And so that's what I'm gonna do.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And with
on your shoulder?
On my shoulder.
Mm-hmm. That's so sweet.
How much does that run? 4 little tiny.
They usually have a minimum.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the artist. I think he's thinking about going to Dom.
Oh yeah, that's who I would always go to every single time.
So, but he wants
Emma. Dom is changing the face of tattooing.
Yeah,
it's the coolest thing.
Is he all the ones on his mama?
Oh yeah. On all the kids, yeah. He's the coolest. Mm-hmm.
So and Park's thinking he wants Emma to draw it, and he wants he's thinking about doing a compass, and like each, like the north would be mountains, the south would be waves, and then trees, and then he doesn't like maybe a tent or something, like so he doesn't know, like he doesn't want it to be girly, but he's also not he doesn't want like a tiger face or like it's really weird if you look at men's and women's tattoos where how different they are, and like they're the aggression of it. So he's like, I don't want a chick tattoo, but I don't want a dude tattoo either. He's like, I want something more.
All the things that he loves is kind of cool.
And that being that, and then Rachel had a great idea of having like the needle in the middle across instead of.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Mm-hmm.
It would be really cute. But so he's gonna start working at design.
Love it.
So another one. Another one. I'm gonna be covered, Amy, before you know it.
I'm so jealous. See, Becca Littlefield has a new one. It's all in full color. It's Noah's Ark. It's like from here to here, full color.
Wow.
And I was like, that must be hundreds of dollars. She's like, it was thousands.
Yeah.
And then she's got a cool one here. She just got when she went to Vegas just for fun. So I'm like,
oh,
I would love that.
Let's do it.
Let's mention Kevin.
That will be sad.
That's the agree to disagree piece.
But if your kids wanted to get one, and that Peter hates them too. He hates them.
Really?
He does not
hates them.
Yeah,
it's a strong word.
It is, and he says that
Okay.
he just not for him. He doesn't. He doesn't think they're sin or anything like that. He's just like, I don't like it. I don't want it on me, and I don't want. And I don't like it on I think people are beautiful the way God created them. They don't need any added stuff. But he's not mad. Like, he's not mad at Emma. He's not. And so when I got it with Emma, he was like, I really was like, are you okay? And he's like, you're doing it with your daughter. He's like, I don't love it. I don't, but I love you. Like, so.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Oh, I 100% would with Jess. Jess will be covered, and I would go with him every single time, but. Kevin does not approve. He just hates them. So.
Anyway, all right. I feel like I'm now getting nervous about starting this. It's because I'm going deep into the actual thing, which I
hoarding?
don't into hoarding.
Okay.
This is part 2. If you haven't listened to part 1,
why are you nervous about it?
I don't know. I tried to be very kind. I wrote and rewrote a lot of this. And was trying to take a softer approach, because when I was young, and still, I would say I still feel the same.
I would agree.
Amount of intensity and conviction and beliefs and my opinion, but when I was young, I hadn't been a mama. A lot of the clients that I'm going to read about today as examples of hoarding, they're real people. But when I was young,
Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
there's no names.
Oh.
It's just he or her or whatever. But struggling with your mic.
It's okay. I'm not leaving. It's fine.
I definitely I was not the person that I am now, and didn't have any tenderness or consideration of their feelings, or even a knowledge of why it might be this way. And so as I was writing these out, I kept trying to be sure. The first time I wrote these stories out, it was in my old voice. It was in the voice of the person that was experiencing it, who I was 12, 16, 18. Those were the ages where I experienced the most amount of hoarders in person. And I was just very like, you're crazy, and this is gross, and we have to do something about it. You know what I mean? I didn't say that, but my attitude was very cut and dried and about it, and I was drawing up conclusions that. So I just want to, again, if you haven't listened to part 1, which is the difference between collecting and hoarding, and at the very end, it's like you can kind of tell which, has my collection become a hoard. Chapter 2, part 2 is called "It's Official, You Are a Hoarder." So now you know. Now, if I'm speaking to you and you are, or if I'm just describing this and it rings true, or if you know somebody and all the things, like this is where I grew up. I started helping people when I was only 12 years old, in their homes, and it was odd. I didn't think about my age, but God had clearly gifted me with, I guess, I don't know what he gifted me with. The ability to see a space for what it could be and to try to find it again. And I loved the feeling of throwing things away and helping people get their space back. So I did that from when I was a very young child, and I love talking about it. I could talk about it all the time, and I never get tired of it, and I find it very fascinating. So this is part 2 of that series. It is important to remember that hoarding isn't always intentional, and that people often don't mean to do it to the extent that it becomes overwhelming. Once collecting has crossed over into hoarding, most people need help from family, friends, and often professionals if they want to make a lasting change. One of the reasons why this topic is one of my favorites for me is because God has continuously put people with collecting/hoarding tendencies in my life. I have helped many of them over long periods of time, and some I have just observed over the years. One thing that I have seen firsthand is how stressful life can become to those who have too much stuff in proportion to their living space. This balance is as different as we all are as humans. There are no two alike. That makes it very difficult when it comes to helping people through a season of collecting or hoarding to a new season of restful simplicity. As I get older, I personally love less and less in my living spaces. But every now and then I can see how collecting certain things could become a passion that could turn against me at any point. I try to carefully guard against this, trying to be aware of how many pairs of shoes I have, how many handbags, art supplies, dishes, blankets, throw pillows, all the things. Anything that we love can become a slippery slope where all of a sudden we look around and realize we have 50 pairs of sneakers, 25 handbags, and although the very rich usually have closets and storage to accommodate vast collections of nice things, most of us don't. It can quickly become overwhelming, and that's the time to stop, to recognize your collection for what it is, a hoard, and take the appropriate steps to simplify your life again. I now want to share some of my personal experiences with hoarders, going all the way back to when I was just 12 years old. When I was only 12, I was already babysitting regularly and helping friends of our family clean. I started spending time with an elderly woman who was kept in the upstairs room of a friend's home. She was the ancient grandmother of this family and suffered from advanced Alzheimer's. This particular family hoarded mostly food and clothing, among other random things. Upstairs, around the tiny empty room where the elderly woman spent her days, there was nothing but small corridors meandering through ceiling-high piles of clothes. Some in boxes, most were in heavy 6 to 8 foot high haphazard piles. It was actually more like clothing walls. Walls made of clothing. This went on for rooms into other rooms, some of which you couldn't even get into unless you climbed up the piles of clothes and then rolled down through a tiny hole by the doorway into the room on the other side. I remember a specific moment when I was staring. So I'm younger than Henry in this situation, which is just, I'm trying to remember that for perspective and why.
How the heck did you get there? I mean, that's wild.
Family, friends. I was always good at cleaning when I was
Safety
home.
issues.
Well, I know.
Sorry.
It's a different time back in the 1900s.
1900s needed some safety issues.
I remember a specific moment when I was staring at a large mass of clothing and realized that what I was looking at was actually a bunk bed that their young son at the time slept in.
Oh.
It was buried up to the top bunk by clothes. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't see a room. You couldn't see the bed. You could just, even on the bed was more
Like,
clothing.
were they folded? Were they in piles? Were
Just
they
piles and like
they laundry tucked out of the dryer and just chucked it in the room in a pile?
Oh no, these were clothes that were not being worn. They were actual. It was walls. It was actually like in Hoarders where like you're walking through a tunnel there, except there wasn't even a tunnel. They climbed on the clothes to get into other
So
rooms.
clothes was their thing.
Climbed onto. It was, yeah, there was a couple. That was the biggest thing that caused the filling of the rooms to happen upstairs. It was in that moment when my eyes adjusted and I saw the bed and I realized that there was a child sleeping in this space as a 12-year-old that I remember making a mental note about what I was seeing. I knew that this was neither normal nor healthy. I remember feeling very fascinated and also very frightened at the same time. I also remember knowing that I never wanted to live in that kind of environment and that I would take drastic measures to prevent it from happening. Downstairs, there was multiple chest freezers in their everyday living space, and when I once was alone, I cracked one of them open to see what they had so much of that they needed multiple chest freezers. They were packed to the top, like the complete thing was filled, packed to the top with Little Debbie snacks that were bought on mega sale at the local pig bread store. This particular house would later burn to the ground some years later because the wood, newspaper, and other flammable items were too close to the wood stove. A few years later, I would take on the cleaning job for an elderly man who was an opera critic. His hoard was exceptionally odd and almost organized. Massive amounts of dog food for his multiple German shepherds, and Comet was kept in the kitchen cupboards. Only dog food and Comet was in the cupboards. There were no dishes. There was almost no normal kitchen things. Aisles of thousands of cassette tapes filled up the downstairs isolated room that he occupied for almost every day. He once told me that every time blank cassette tapes, this is obviously dating both me and this man, but every time he went to a big box store and saw blank cassette tapes on sale, he bought all of them.
Oh, wow.
There were aisles of them. He built shelves and there were aisles of them. He also hoarded yogurt in giant chest freezers. As far as I could tell, yogurt and pickles were all he ate at home because I never found any evidence that he made or ate anything else. I suppose it was because he was often traveling and eating out for most of his life. He collected rugs that he piled one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, which made it absolutely a back-breaking job to vacuum all the dog hair in that house. That was another scenario that absolutely bent my mind. Why rugs on top of rugs? I asked him once, and he said, the top one keeps the others from fading.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
All right, I guess. In his bathroom closet, I remember being shocked to find every travel soap and shampoo that he had ever come into contact with in decades and decades of his career. Thousands, all different, all stacked neatly in deep, deep closet shelves. They had essentially formed a new wall. Looking them over closely one day, they seemed to represent his entire life.
So he's not using them. There was not one in the
I wonder
shower.
if he stole them on his trips too, you know, like the
I
cart in the
think-
hallway.
They were probably just the ones that...
And then if he's
he
traveling,
he was a world traveler. He was a world, a
it's that
famous
thing
opera
about
critic.
people who can't take that good deal, the steal, the free stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to take it. It's free.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
All the things that this particular man collected were very organized, air quotes. But the accumulation of too many of these and other things restricted his movement through the house and made it hard to use his kitchen and other useful spaces. Once I attempted to clean his fridge, and in addition to dozens of thawing yogurts that were dated up to a decade earlier, I found a jar of pickles that was older than me. Best used before June 1978.
Oh,
It
my
said.
word.
It was a weird moment.
Had he frozen them and thawed them?
He froze the yogurts. The pickles were just in the fridge for longer than I was alive.
Wow. Okay.
As I did often in those kinds of situations, I just stared blankly and tried to process the ironies of the moment. I really do remember being in that kitchen and being like, where am I? How is my life led down to this moment?
Did you talk to him about it? Did you ask him about him?
I remember saying, Mr.
Mr.
Beep! I just found pickles that are older than me. I was very funny and light with my people.
Yeah.
And they we had a relationship.
Yeah.
By this point,
Yeah.
you ease in and you spend days and after months and months, you spend days and you have that rapport.
What did he say?
He never really said anything. He was a survivor, and I mentioned it. He was a survivor of the Great Depression.
Yep, my meme is the same way.
Yeah, he was a child then. And so all the reasons why the soaps, all the reasons why the sales. And if you can get it, you get it because you may never be able to get it again.
Yep. And what happens if you can't get it again?
And all the things.
My meme has, my aunts would have to go in and clear, and they could find by decade chicken noodle soup and cream of mushroom soups, and it would be like 1958, 1968, 1978.
As you got deeper,
1980, like there was like, it was like,
Yeah.
it was like a time traveling.
Yeah.
You could see how the label changed through
Yeah.
the years. Branding.
Branding.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I mean, he literally had accumulated a lifetime supply of Comet and then his entire lifetime of travel soaps, which he, for reasons, all the reasons, he definitely wasn't using. But he was, as I say here, he had lived through the Great Depression, and then he grew up to. Well, here I am trying to process this moment. I am helping a man who lived through the Great Depression, grew up to travel the world, collecting famous opera singer signatures along the way, and to hoard Comet under his sink, dog food in his cupboards, chest freezers of decades worth of yogurts. And I was standing in his cluttered kitchen as a teenager, holding a jar of pickles that had been in the back of that fridge since before I was born. Again, an exceptionally odd experience added to my own personal story. And I am sure that I went home that day and threw away a lot of stuff from my family's home. I was often getting in trouble for this.
It's true. I remember
in
once.
my family.
I remember once.
I still never stopped.
She did not.
I couldn't help it. It was my glitch. I do believe that, like, off script here, I do believe that I'm both people that are, like, super minimalists and have, like, there's a glitch and there's a tick, which I can't be that, because I was like, I'm an artist and a mom and I'm this and that. I don't let myself, I have the feels.
You have the propensity.
I have the feels. It's there. It's in my brain. I
But you just
can't
can't,
be.
yeah.
If I was by myself and I had a little apartment, it would be so sparse.
Yeah.
But, like, I have a life. You
Right.
know, life brings stuff. But I do believe, like, there's a glitch that happens on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
If you become a hoarder, something's glitched.
Mm-hmm.
If you become an ultra minimalist, the fact where you're like, oh my gosh, this is on my table.
Yeah.
Glitch.
Yeah.
There's something is triggered. Something
We'll
is
discuss
triggered.
that later.
Yeah, we're putting lots of pins in a lot of things.
Yeah. So good.
Again, such an exceptionally odd experience, adding to my own. So my glitch, inevitably helping people with their hoards, did affect me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always needed to go home and purge something of my own after something exceptionally weird had happened, which it always does if you're working. Like, there's no way that it gets weird. It gets weird because it's just so, it's so different. It's so, like, and I think what I love about it is that there's no two people that are the same.
Right.
I have so many stories like this. I'm only telling 3 of them today, but one of the strangest things about this particular client of mine was in his bathroom were 7 toothbrushes, all lined up in a holder made for a large family. Every single toothbrush looked positively ancient and was completely worn down to a rusty yellow nub with almost no bristles.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
After months of cleaning around this art installation piece that made me shudder every time, I summoned the courage to ask him, why 7? He simply replied, they last longer if you have one for every day of the week. And it was quick on the draw.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even have to think about it. I knew at that point that was the Great Depression talking, so I went out and bought him 7 new toothbrushes. I felt like I should get some sort of a medal for my philanthropic deeds, but to my great dismay, the effect...
Did he save them?
No. The effect of... I didn't even give him the option. I threw them away.
Oh.
The effect of me throwing away his old brushes was very hard for him.
Aw.
Again, I was very young and already thought that I was the gold standard when it came to decluttering and helping people in this arena. He had probably had those toothbrushes most of his adult life by the state of them, and I just threw them away in one fell swoop. Gone. I felt great. It was such a cathartic experience.
Success.
He was sad
Oh.
and in a state of shock over his toothbrushes. He never said anything about it, really, but I could tell that he thought that I was the weird one in that scenario. And I always felt bad for just happily chucking his toothbrushes without asking him first and really talking it out. I'm still conflicted about that aspect of helping hoarders. Sometimes I do think it's better to ask them to trust me and to let me just do my thing. Let me help you kind of scenario. Other times I think years of psychoanalysis are needed first, during and after. case by case. No two are alike, and it is very, very hard to know how to proceed with love and care. I believe it is often a tough love situation, rather like an intervention where hurt feelings are inevitable and just part of the process of letting go. I continued to clean for him off and on for a few more years until he passed away. Soon after he died, there were multiple tractor-trailer-sized dumpsters parked outside his house for weeks. With the exception of a few antiques and a grand piano, nothing in his home was of any real value, and decades of frozen yogurts, his hoard of Comet, piles of old dusty rugs that smelled heavily of his dogs, his thousands of cassette tapes that were no longer used to anyone, and a 3-foot by 9-foot deep high wall of single-serving travel soaps were all thrown into the dumpsters. This made a very sad, ironic impression on my heart, and one that has never left me. I just need to take a sip of something. I think I ran out of my drink. 25 minutes. Okay.
Be mine?
Yeah.
So good. Is this entertaining?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very much.
it makes me sad.
It's crazy.
I was gonna say, because I had a hoarder in my life who similar, and the daughter said, you have, like, if you had just handed him the toothbrushes, he probably would have saved them until his were no longer good. Do you know what I mean? So she's like, you literally have to throw out the old and instantly implement the newer. It will never happen.
I agree, and I think that's what's hard. It's been a conflict for my personality as well, because I tend to take it. I tend to not only enjoy I'm enjoying that, and I'm gonna kind of like dance on your grave kind of thing, where I'm just like, and now I'm gonna show you what it's like. And now the 45-year-old version of myself that has seen a lot more of life. It's like, oh gosh, no, like I'm not gonna do that.
Because there's obviously there's psychologists that specialize in hoarding because it's such a deep-seated
right
emotional.
It's so emotional.
There is a disorder there. It's a psychological disorder.
Right. I think that there's a place where I think there's a place, not with everybody, but it depends on when it started. Sometimes it starts when you're a child and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And actually, and as you get older, it becomes more of a problem. It's really only the super old people, or if there's a child being brought up in a hoard that's dangerous, where it's like people gotta get intervention. It doesn't matter how you feel about this because now it's dangerous. Most people, it's not that severe. It's not that big of a deal. And I think before it gets to that point, or there's a turning point in the life or whatever, where it's like, maybe you can catch yourself and make a different choice.
Because I think a lot of times, like, my mom, she doesn't listen, so, but I think she has hoarding tendencies, and I bet I would be curious to see what my aunts have to say about that, and I'd be curious of what now she lives in one of those little, like, assisted apartment things. I'm curious of what her apartment looks like. I wonder if it was like the Campbell soup, because it was like what you're describing as a child. Like, for me to walk through there, like, the living areas were cluttered. Like, she had the tea, little red rose tea figurines, every single one in doubles and triples and quadruples and vape cases, but they were organized. But then you would go up where she had this old attic that the boys used to live in, because she had 6 kids, and it was packed. Like, it was insane. And in the basement, it was insane. Like, you could see, like, the levels, the trunks upon trunks, and then, like, it was like chronological. And I think for her, it was a little bit depression, but I also think it was the narrative of her life. Like, these were all her, like, you could go in, and I found my biological father's Letterman jacket. He graduated the year before I was born, so maybe like 77, and it's there, like, and I bet it's still there, like, all of those things, and it became like a museum of her life. And if she got rid of it, what does that mean about her life?
Right.
And
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
people
it's really hard.
people put their memories in their stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and so like you can't. It's and after my like I said in the last one, after my grandmother died, I actually understand what people mean by that. Like when you don't have that person anymore
Mm-hmm.
and you have their things, there's a deep fear of losing them and
Right.
losing their stuff. Like I have to consciously, like I wear 2 of her bracelets, I have 2 gold, I have 2 silver, I have 3 necklaces. That's it. I threw away, and she had bins and bins.
That was an
of jewelry.
exercise of you made a choice to do that though,
Mhm.
to go through
Right.
and remember and say, I cannot keep a whole, I don't want to keep, it's even okay to just say, I don't want to. You're not a callous person if you don't want to keep every single piece of your mom's jewelry or your grandma's jewelry
Right,
or everything that your kids touch. I have a hard time throwing away my boys' artwork, but I can honestly say to them, I was like, I have favorites. I like this one, this one, this one. I don't love that one so much. So I'm not gonna get rid of it. And I'm not throwing you in the garbage.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna pick my favorites, and I'm gonna pick a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
I think the words reasonable and unreasonable need to really be thrown on the table when we're talking about this stuff, because it is really hard.
And I think that's how it becomes that slippery slope. I do think some people have that diagnosis where like there's that glitch, like you said. But then I also think people have lived life, and we as people don't allow ourselves to feel trauma, and we don't allow ourselves to grieve. We're not a grieving people. We're not those kinds of things, and so
we're not letting go people either.
we're right in that, and so
Yes,
we
very
attach
good.
to our things
Right.
the emotion and the people and the that we should let go of,
Yeah.
and the things.
Put it on a fire pier like the Vikings,
Yes.
and all their favorite stuff on it with them,
Yep.
and send it in flames into the deep.
Yep.
And the memory, it's a celebration.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
what
what
I
I would
am.
rather that someone do for me. I
Absolutely.
would rather
Then
be
take up a plot of
incinerated
ground,
and
like the
sprinkle
sweet house
me
could be on. Yes.
on my
Absolutely.
garden
Yep.
and just
Into the wind, baby.
into the wind. Into
Right.
the
Carry
wind.
on.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, it is. It is good. It's all very. It's deep. It's emotional.
It's
It
really
is
emotional.
hard. It's one of the hardest things, and I do want to say that who I am now, I have a very deep respect for how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that sympathy, empathy on the front end of my life. I was just cut and dry. Let's do this. I can't help you. Now I'm just like, I don't know. Let's try to figure this out one way or the other. Let's try to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Another client of mine in that same season, so I was still a teenager, was a mother of 3 little ones. She had 0 organization methods for anything. The house was a sea of chaos. There was nowhere to sit comfortably. There was no surface to work on at all. All of their clothes were very neatly folded, but were stored on their living room sofa, the coffee table, the floor near the sofa, the window between the kitchen and the living room. It was very clear that the laundry never got put away. In her kitchen, underneath years worth of junk mail and newspapers and flyers, was their only table. When I asked, that was the first thing I remember being like, I'm a surface person. I actually don't like on my dining room table, if there's even just one book resting on my dining room table, aside from like the candle or the flowers or whatever that's on it, I'm like, what's happening with this book? Where does this need to go? And it's the first place we all dump stuff when we get home. All of us. My handbag goes there, groceries, the boys' backpacks, their stuff, papers, cups. It all goes there. By the end of the day, I like to try to find my dining room table again, because it needs to be reset.
Yeah.
A table is supposed to be a surface to me where things it's not a storage
unit.
place. Right. Yeah. So this bothered me. That was my first mission when I was in this house, was to try to find this little kitchen table. When I asked if I could try to find the table and throw away all the papers, it was really just junk mail. There was a quick no as a response. When I asked why, she said she wanted to read it all first.
Oh boy.
Being young and already very opinionated as to what should happen next, I bit my lip, but pressed in a little bit more gently about how old most of the papers were, and how basically none of it was even relevant to here and now. I went back years. I tried to use this as a logical reason to part with them, but she said no again. When I asked why not, she quickly and simply said, I want to see everything that I missed. Let's just pause there for a minute.
Here's a story. Here's a story there.
That thought and pattern of behavior is something I will come back to again and again. It is one of the best examples of the glitch.
Yeah.
In action that I personally experienced. It was so quick, she didn't even have to think about it. I, on the other hand, have never stopped thinking about it. My brain can't understand keeping years worth of sales flyers right in my everyday living space on surfaces I desperately need and that would make my whole life so much easier and more enjoyable. I can't imagine caring so much about what I missed that I would choose keeping those things over having the surface of my table free. This is a real conflict of values that has always been hard for me when I've worked with people. I value it highly, and so should you.
Yeah.
Now, while I actually believe that to some extent, I do know that what I refer to as the glitch is very, very real. This is a place that only after decades has my heart softened a bit because I still don't know for sure how to press in to that correctly. Did a leg just break on the chair?
No, just me.
Oh, I thought it was something good flying.
Sorry, it was time to be real.
It was time to be real. Oh man.
We got you, Will.
I got you though. You can flippers. We're late.
Keep going.
Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, so this is a place that only after decades, I'm just to read that again because you guys were falling.
Sorry, yeah.
This is a place only after decades has my heart softened a bit because I still don't know how, for sure, how to press into this correctly. I can only call it as I see it. It's a fascinating place to land and just observe. I remember being completely dumbfounded. I stood there staring at those papers for what seemed like forever before breathing again and just nodding my head in some sort of acknowledgement that words had been said. I knew that we had hit a wall. In hindsight, I should have tried compassion and hope right then and there. I should have taken her arm gently and said with total kindness, "Oh, sweet mama, let's let go of all of this, shall we, and find your kitchen table so that you and your babies can sit around it and have a nice family meal tonight." But I was only 16. I didn't know anything about being a mother. I barely knew what it was to be human. I just knew at that moment that I didn't have what it took for me to help this poor woman. I was focused on the potential outcome. I didn't know how to handle the deep emotional attachment that she had to her seemingly worthless piles of things. She wanted my help, but when confronted with what it would take to create a more peaceful, functional kitchen space and living space, she still chose the stuff.
Did you keep working with her for a while after that?
A little while, just a little while.
I remember this one, so I couldn't remember. Yeah.
It was just a couple of months total, and I'll read what happened at the end. I wanted that table cleared off as quickly as possible. She wanted a clean house, but didn't know how to let go of the stuff that was in the way. This is the paradox of the hoarder, in my opinion. I think that they want a sense of safety, opportunity, and freedom, but the hoarding creates chaos, limits, and stress. Once, while trying to explain detailed ways to improve the issues of laundry in their living space, this person's husband burst into the scene and shouted, all of a sudden, literally just came into the room while we were working, "I'm sick of living like this." I can remember it all exactly. The sense of overwhelm, pleading for help in such a stressful environment. But in the end, I couldn't help them. The last day that I was there, I was cleaning the fridge. I discovered bloody juice from meat that had gone bad on the top shelf, dripping onto fresh fruit and veggies and everything else on the shelves below. I tried to explain what I had found in the most delicate way possible, but she broke down as I told her that everything really should just be thrown away to be safe. Through frustrated tears, she accused me of accusing her of being a bad mother. I knew in that moment that this was the beginning of the end of me trying to help her. What she wanted me to create somehow was simplicity and more peace and tidiness at home. But like many people who hired me over the years, she thought I would be able to wave a magic wand and make miracles happen. When I finally explained how I physically couldn't make most of her house cleaner, it was just too cluttered, and that nothing in the house made sense for a family of 5, she didn't understand how one thing affected the other. I tried to reason with her for weeks and offered to do all the sorting and throwing and hauling away, but as far as I know, she was never able to part with her things. She couldn't even use her dishwasher for everyday dishes because she had an extra special set that was being stored in the dishwasher.
I remember that. I remember that so vividly, you coming home and telling me that. And I was like, I can't. I couldn't even put it in my head.
Me neither. She didn't want to part with all of the old papers and flyers, so we never found that kitchen table underneath. All the surfaces she needed that I wanted to help her find were covered with things that she valued more. Though the cumulative effect was stress and overwhelm, it was too painful for her to let things go. She thought she wanted things to be clean and tidy, but not decluttered. To me, there's no difference. To her, there was also no difference. We had reached an impasse. She could not help me, and I could not help her. I really do believe that there is a glitch that occurs at some point, but I also believe that it can be observed starting to happen beforehand and prevented, and that an intervention can make a difference. If you are a hoarder and you know it, perhaps that glitch can be switched off. I think I might stop there because I have a whole nother story, but this is already pretty long. And I want to read a list that's at the bottom to end this one. Looking at all the different situations I found myself in over the years, I still find myself pondering the gap between a simple, orderly home and a cluttered, chaotic home. What happens in the gap to lead to either one scenario or the other? At some point, people choose one or the other, simplicity or chaos, order or disorder, tidiness or untidiness, space or stuff. Personally, space is what affects me the most, but what about you? So we'll do a couple questions, and then I have a list of signs of hoarding, which is pretty fascinating.
It's good. Really, really good.
So sad.
So,
That, no, like, that last story really hit me hard.
it was really, really hard to live it out and try to do something. We never accomplished anything. It was we shuffled some things around, and it was...
Well, the fact that her husband it was so hard for him.
Yeah.
You know?
It was way worse than I even described in this. It was way, 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 way worse.
Yeah.
And there was so much more, and there were animals involved in the living spaces, and it's, I can't imagine also having had little kids, which I hadn't had at the time, but I was just like, I don't know where the kids were when I was there because they weren't there with us, but I can't imagine like little children.
Yeah.
How do you serve dinner?
Right.
Or clean up from dinner, or make dinner, or
I think the reason that resonated is that we were really great friends. We were friends at that time, and I remember walking with you through that process because you would come home and clean your room and talk to me, and I also know that family as well, and so like to see that again, I'm seeing it now as a 45-year-old woman too, but remembering it then and remembering like the helplessness you felt so helpless in that situation,
really, really helpless,
and sad and frustrated.
Yes, it'd be so frustrating.
It was. I felt really, really depressed.
Yeah,
it was a rough one.
Yeah, I felt. I always struggle with, even now. So, one of my negative self narratives is, if I can't be the one that helps, then it must be my fault. Like, I'm less than because I can't help you. Whereas I'm able now more and more I'm trying to retrain my brain. Where
if you watch that show, The Hoarder, sometimes the professionals sometimes it cannot be helped.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like, I think you could see the dysfunction. Like, I could see the dysfunction. Like,
and I see how it's connected.
And and so, I didn't see that. But like, even me who had never been in that home, I know this family, and you could see the dysfunction and the holes. Like, there's obvious holes, gaps, better word, gaps in this family and issue. And it was just so sad to see, because I think in your 16-year-old self, you truly believed if we could just send them away and you could bang that out, it would all be better. And I think
probably
now,
if they came back, it would have freaked them right out.
I think that so when you help people and they do trust you, it's my favorite scenario, which happens. It happened a lot in the course of my life, where I said, go away and just trust me, and they can't even remember what's missing. They cannot remember. So if you do allow someone in your life, if you do trust someone, if you are the hoarder and you trust somebody, let them come in and.
Can a hoarder a true hoarder?
Well, that's what I think she would. I think she wouldn't remember, but I think she would have been panicked, and it would have been like that again in 6 months.
Yes, I do.
I do think if you don't help them change the fundamental
parts
of keeping and buying and hoarding or bringing home or finding,
because that is the thing that I think laid on me so hard was I want to read everything that I missed. Like, that just crushes me. Their lack of worth, like that must.
Or presence with the now, here and now.
Because what's happening is she's missing so much now.
Right. And she just feels worthless. Like, that she wants to see. That's what, when I heard that, that's how it landed on me, was like, that you feel so insignificant that you want to dwell on everything that you've missed and see all the sales that you missed. And all that does, like, why would you do that? You would do that to say, look at, how worthless I am. I missed all this. Like,
it's a lot to diagnose, or it's a lot to pick apart. I don't
well, that's how it landed on me,
that.
and my whole heart just was like, that you feel so insignificant and not seen. Like, you're so invaluable. That's what that invaluable.
See, it didn't let me like that at all. It was more just like, I want to see what this article said, and this newspaper said, and this thing said. I don't want to miss that. I don't want to see. Do you know what I mean? But in the meantime, you're missing family dinners. You're missing time around the table because of the stack of papers that you've never gotten to. And how do you think you're going to get to them when you haven't got to them for 3 years? Like, like it's like this delusion.
Yeah. It's a delusion of time. It's a delusion of how long you're going to live. A value. Yeah. It's so many. It's so many things. Fix the. Yeah.
Good. Carry on.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
For the sake of time, I think, and we'll probably circle back. The one that's following this is it's going to be called Just in Case.
Oh, that is sickness.
Where we're going into, I already start to itch.
Yeah. Your neck, I was watching, your neck got redder and redder and redder as you were reading about it.
I do, and I feel like...
Look at her neck. And I was watching it. I I was watching it because I've known you for so long, and it
feel
started.
flushed. I have eyes.
Rach, it started like little circles, and I was watching it. I was like,
know.
she's gonna
Got
get.
video evidence has real effects.
It is wild.
Yeah.
Sorry,
really,
not to like traumatize you, but
No.
wow,
I
sorry.
know how to process. I'll go throw something out.
You did. I was watching her neck get redder and redder. I was like,
It's because it's a passion. So this is a passionate thing, and I get literally lit up about it.
Literally, I'm like, I don't get highs over my passions.
Oh well, I'm sure I have a disorder of some
it's a
sort.
glitch.
It's my glitch.
It's the glitch.
So I have a few questions we'll ask our listeners just to ponder, and we don't have time to really go break them down.
Yeah.
But and then a bunch of signs to whether or not you're a hoarder, which people might just find helpful.
Yeah.
So personally, space is what affects me the most. What about you? Do you place a higher value on stuff or space? How do you know if you're choosing chaos over order? Do you know how to tell if you have crossed over into hoarding territory? And here is a lineup of questions to check. Signs of this behavior, hoarding, often start in someone's teen years or early adulthood, and they tend to develop gradually. They range from mild to severe. If you're listening to this and you don't know if you're a hoarder, these questions might help. If you know you're a hoarder, but you don't know to what extent, if you answer yes to many of these questions, then I would say it's official. You are a hoarder. But don't fret, friend. We won't stop there. So here's the list. Do I have a strong attachment to my belongings? Do I feel anxiety or distress when I try to get rid of things? Do I look for and keep things I don't need or already have? Do I find it hard to make decisions about my things, such as where to put them, how to categorize them, or what to keep? Do I have trouble finding things I know I have somewhere? Even I sometimes buy extra ketchup because I'm like, I think I have one in the basement in my pantry, but I don't, but that this is a little bit more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have trouble using and enjoying my living spaces due to clutter? That is one of my, if I work with people, that's one of my fundamentals. If it's affecting your daily life,
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm.
flag on the field. Do I feel overwhelmed, embarrassed, or ashamed about the clutter in my living space? Do I avoid having friends and family over because I am embarrassed about all the stuff in my house? Do I struggle with social isolation or relationship problems and suspect it might be connected to the state of my house? Am I having financial difficulties because I can't stop buying things? Do I avoid activities that involve getting rid of things, such as cleaning, organizing, decluttering? More severely, am I living with fire hazards, tripping hazards, unsanitary conditions, or other health and safety risks? Those are rare, but they're out there. And then I added a couple of my own. Have
Rachel Flair.
Have I started to collect actual garbage? My kids have. They collect cans
Yes.
and bottles. And I'm throwing them under the bus today.
I will say it
Good
passes because Parker actually got rid of all of his, whatever that tea one is, Yoruba, except for one of each kind, and he put like an air plant in them, like it's funky faces. But
Henry has Prime. It's all done very tastefully on the top shelf of his bedroom, and it looks great. Sam does not have a place for his can collection, and so it's sitting on a windowsill next to his trash can, and so I'm like, it just looks like trash.
Just flick it in when you walk by one day. Okay, go on.
Have I lost the ability to tell what is garbage and what is valuable? That's another one of my own.
That's what, yeah.
Do I feel super defensive or protective of my things, even though I couldn't even tell you what I actually have.
Oh, that's a good one.
Those are all mine. I'm taking credit for those.
Copyright.
Copyright for my book. But seriously, eventually it swings into almost comical, but it's true. It's like, you really don't know what's under there, do you? And yet, if I started to dig for some
You'd
stuff
panic.
and with a trash bag, you would be like, no, don't. Okay.
I did a wedding for 2 producers, and they did they're movie producers, and they did a documentary, and I watched the documentaries, getting to know them, and they went into a hoarder's house, and I said to them, like, I'd never seen anything like it, or like what you would see on TV. So I was talking to them about it, and I was like, what was that like? And they said that thankfully one of them wasn't feeling well, and they had Vicks, and they would they would put Vicks in their nose because it smelled so bad. And they would take breaks. They'd be like, oh, I need to change the battery on the camera, because they didn't want to hurt this person's feelings. And they go through the whole life of this guy, and he moves into an apartment, and the house gets condemned, and they said his apartment became the same thing. Like it started before
It's very, I mean, when it's that extreme, that's normal, and it's very hard to help. It's really hard to help those people. And actually, the woman with the kids, I omitted it from my original. I originally had it and then I took it out. But since you just brought that up, in addition to all the clothes and the papers and everything, there was a rabbit in a cage that was twice the size of this table, right in the middle of their living room, right in the middle of all their clean laundry, and the ammonia stench from the rabbit pee, which is especially smelly. In their living room, in an enclosed living room area, was so overpowering. And again, just another thing where I was like, I can't believe that people live like this. Like, I can't believe it. And so it's a lot. And there was little kids, and I was just like, I don't get it. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, if you answered a reluctant yes to any of these questions, but especially multiple, you may be or be in danger of becoming a verified hoarder, and that's okay, friend. You are not your hoard. You are a human being who has so much worth aside from all the stuff in your life. If you feel less than when you think of letting go of your things, that's normal, but it's not okay. You have worth that cannot be measured in things. Not things hung on walls, stored in totes, stacked in piles, or kept in dark corners. So let's try to take steps towards letting go. Let's make some space for peace by saying goodbye to some of the extras, the maybes, the just in cases. It's the gap between a collection of something, whatever it is, and longing for organization that people who are stuck in a hoarding mentality fall into and can't get out of. They won't have that feeling of their life being more organized if they can't let go of their stuff. You can't have both. You can't have a simple, orderly home and a home filled to the brim with stuff just in case. And just in case is where we're going to leave off for today.
Good. Brava.
Woo!
Good.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It was a full day.
I know. I feel.
I know.
I need a nap.
We need a nap.
Well, it's time to go.
Oh my
And
God.
on that note, girls.
No, I keep thinking I have to go get Henry, but
You
I just have
don't.
to actually boot him out of that
You
house.
don't, because spiritual emphasis this week is stupid.
It is.
Oh, shh. Click that.
Not
It's
mine.
not. It's not. It's just that
It's
tomorrow we're gonna have another conversation about it. Because
You are
I
a
think-
nice mom, nicer than me.